Hey everyone, what's going on? If you've been following my recent videos, I've talked a whole lot about a Native American theme that's going on within the mainstream media, and also these connections that I've noticed over the years and patterns within my own life that's synced up to some type of Native American indigenous people theme. I even had this video about Meghan Markle announcing that she had a miscarriage, and that was around the same day that we got the story about the indigenous hockey player who played for the Chicago Blackhawks die. And then, we also had Thanksgiving the very next day, and we had a story about indigenous people wanting their land back. And think about the Washington football team / Redskins who were playing the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving. The Indians versus the Cowboys, Thanksgiving, think about it, right? And in this video with Meghan Markle, I pointed out that over the years, every time I see a story with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, there's oftentimes a story about Native Americans in the media that same day. And a lot of the times, the stories had to deal with Donald Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, such as when Meghan Markle and Harry announced their engagement, Donald Trump called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. And then when they announced that they were going to have a baby for the first time, or, obviously they've only had one kid, but when they announced they're having the baby, Donald Trump was also in the news again, and it was all about Elizabeth Warren and the Pocahontas stuff. And what are the odds that now, on December 2nd, we get a story about the actress, or the voice actress of Pocahontas in the Disney cartoon, got arrested two times in 3 days, And I talk about stuff like this all the time. The most random thing that I'll be talking about, it shows up in the media very soon after, if not the next day. This is only a few days later, and now we got the actress who voiced Pocahontas in the news. There's so many countless times. I don't understand how people come on here and comment things and say, like, but can you predict anything? It's, I'm not necessarily predicting anything, but look at this, I remember I was talking about how the movie The Exorcism was important, like in 2016, and then William Peter Blatty died 2 days later. And in 2019, there was countless examples, talking about Mary Poppins. Then a story about Mary Poppins was in the news, and talked about how Denmark was important, and the next day Donald Trump wanted to buy Greenland from Denmark. That was the major headline story in the media. Talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Then Luke Perry died. One of the actors in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And then Rutger Hauer died. The main vampire of the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There's just countless examples of when I have talked about things and then they show up in the media. So here we go. Another story about Pocahontas, right after I mentioned how Pocahontas is important. Another story we had the story about Rafer Johnson dying. And this guy just so happens to be, he was a famous decathlon guy, but he also was one of the bodyguards for Robert Kennedy, and he is one of the guys, along with Rosie Greer, who tackled Sirhan Sirhan. And if you go back to what I documented about the death of Bobby Brown Jr. on November 19th, I even put at the very end here how there was something important to RFK, and I thought maybe Rosie Greer was going to die, because it's synced up. I'm going to talk about a Rose theme. Thought maybe there was something, but what are the odds that somebody even connected to the RFK assassination would die now? And, this is all connected to the movie The Bodyguard, and with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. And just before this, I also talked about how I thought maybe James Earl Jones would die, November 22nd. And the reason was because there was a story about Dances with Wolves in the media, and Kevin Costner, who's the star in Dances with Wolves, and he's also in the movie Field of Dreams with James Earl Jones. And if you go back to 2016, in July, in the beginning of July, is when I started thinking the Indians were going to play the Cubs in the World Series. And of course, the Indians did go on to play the Cubs in the World Series. right around the time that all of the Keystone Pipeline stories became really big in the media, right? Oh, the odds. Keystone Pipeline, while the Indians are in the World Series. The Simpsons episode that predicts Donald Trump to be the president before the first woman president. It's when Bart goes to the Indian casino. It's also the 243rd episode in Native American, and gematria equals 243. And I'll get a little bit more in depth with this in a minute because I want to re-explain some things from 2016, but Kevin Costner and Field of Dreams was this very important theme that I noticed leading up to the Indians and the Cubs in the World Series. And believe it or not, right before the World Series began that year, James Earl Jones' wife died. And in September that year, W.P. Kinsella died. He's the guy who wrote the book Shoeless Joe, which is the inspiration for the movie Field of Dreams. But in regards to this recent thing here, so I thought maybe James Earl Jones would die. And James Earl Jones is also the voice of Darth Vader in the Star Wars movies. And of course, then on November 28th, we got the death of the actor who actually portrays Darth Vader. Even though James Earl Jones does the voice, the actor who portrays Darth Vader died. So just another connection. Even though it wasn't exactly the way I thought it was going to be, what are the odds that Darth Vader would die? And what are the odds that somebody from the RFK assassination would die? And what are the odds that Pocahontas is now in the media after I talk about how Pocahontas is important to some Native American theme that's going on? So let me go back to 2016. I want to explain a little bit about this Native American theme because I absolutely know that it's important. And I started paying attention to it a little bit after the death of Prince. Remember Prince, the singer? He died on Queen Elizabeth's birthday, 4/21, and he has a song called I Would Die For, and the letter U, and of course the letter U was the 21st letter, so he died 4/21, just like his song, I Would Die For You, and a whole lot more, His girlfriend Vanity was from Niagara Falls, and Niagara Falls got changed to the color purple that same day because they said it was a tribute to Queen Elizabeth and so on. But in the beginning of June, we got this story about this alligator who killed a kid from the Omaha area and at Disney World or whatever. And they reported it out of Lake Buena Vista, Florida. And I live pretty close. I live about an hour from Omaha and so on. And I also went to Buena Vista University as the college. So I was like, that's pretty interesting. And I looked it up. And this kid was from Elkhorn, Nebraska. And you got Buena Vista here. And I live like the exact halfway point. And there was all kinds of stuff. I can't remember it all, but I just pointed out some interesting things. How, like, his name equaled 68, and the town that I live in equals 68. And the only famous thing that I've ever learned about this town that I live in is that they killed the last keeper of the sacred pole of the Omaha tribe in the year 1868. And of course, the town equals 68. This kid's name equaled 68. And they killed Chief Yellow Smoke. And somebody also pointed out to me that it was interesting because the Indianapolis Colts player, and think about Indianapolis, and the land of the Indian is what Indiana is named from. And Prince also had a birthday of June 7th, which is the same day that Mike Pence was born. And Mike Pence is also from the land of Indiana, or the land of the Indian, right? Indianapolis, the Colts. But the Colts owner, he bought Prince's Yellow Cloud guitar. And somebody pointed out Yellow Cloud, Yellow Smoke. There may be a connection. And the interesting thing about this story is that if you read through the story, basically he was like in a bar fight or something in this town. And I'm talking, this town's like 1,000 people too. So, but he was in a bar fight in 1868 and his head got bashed in and he eventually rode back to his, wherever the tribe was staying outside of town, and then he died the next morning. And when he died, the whole tribe was going to come to town and kill everybody. But the Freemasons in town decided to go out and meet with them, and they wore all their Freemason stuff. And when they went outside, they did Freemason, or the Native Americans saw they were wearing Freemason stuff, and so they said that they would believe them because they were Freemasons. And then the Freemasons told him the people who killed him weren't from the town, and they fled the town. So then the Omaha people didn't come and kill the whole town, right? That's basically the story. So the Freemasons saved this town that I live in, and after the death of their chief, Yellow Smoke. And, you know, there's some other things here, like, talked about the Battle of Buena Vista and how it was synced up to Zachary Taylor, the president. And oddly enough, if you look up the last time that someone got ate by an alligator before this kid, his name was Richard Zachary Taylor. And it says it was on the date of 6/5, right? And Zachary Taylor equals 65 in gematria, and he also died at the age of 65. So what are the odds, you know? He died age 65, his name equals 65, the last person to get ate by an alligator was on 6/5, you know, and this story came out of Lake Buena Vista, Florida, and so on. So I knew there was some type of connection to this, and I just started paying attention to, you know, Native American themes and so on. And what was it? You know, July 2nd, I documented some other things about this Miss Missouri saying she was openly gay, and I talked about how I had this weird dream about salt, lightning, and thunder, or salt, thunder, and lightning. And I was thinking about Salt Lake City, and I had just learned about how the Mormons were important to the Omaha tribe. The Omaha tribe is the reason that the Mormons came to Council Bluffs, Iowa, and that's like the famous starting point of the Mormon Trail before they went to Salt Lake City and so on, right? So there's a big Mormon population in Council Bluffs, Iowa, which is basically like a suburb of Omaha, Nebraska, pretty much. You know, it's right across the river. Most people wouldn't admit that because a lot of people, you know, Council Bluffs is pretty methy and trashy, but anyway, I documented all this stuff about the Mormons and how the Mormons were important to the Omaha tribe. I also pointed out, somewhere in here I pointed out something about the Washington Redskins and their player Brandon Scherf. I don't know where I put it in here. Yeah, I wrote in here because Yellow Smoke Park, named after Chief Yellow Smoke, it's about 20 minutes away from where I live. 25 minutes. It's in Denison, Iowa. But it's in between Denison, Iowa, and a town called Vale, Iowa. But I pointed out that it was interesting that the Washington Redskins football player, Brandon Scherf, actually is from Denison, Iowa. And Steve King was also in the media around that time, the Iowa congressman who's racist and didn't want Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill and so on, right? He was also in the media around that time. And he went to Denison High School, and it's the Denison Monarchs, and I think he was born in Storm Lake, Iowa, where Buena Vista College is, and then he went to high school in Denison, Iowa. So I was like, interesting. I pointed out Brandon Scherf plays for the Washington Redskins. There's this Native American theme going on. And then, let me find it here. Just a few days later, we got the death of Kyle Calloway in Vale, Arizona. And he is a former Iowa Hawkeye player. And Brandon Scherf also was a former Iowa Hawkeye player. And, you know, I just pointed out a whole bunch of stuff. The thing that stuck out to me the most was that he died in Vale, Arizona. And remember, Yellow Smoke Park was between Denison, Iowa, and Vale, Iowa. And Denison, Iowa is also important to this guy named Jim Garrison, who Kevin Costner played in the movie JFK. Think about JFK, RFK. But in the movie JFK, Kevin Costner plays this guy was born in Denison, Iowa. So I knew there was some type of connection. And even in gematria, if you write out Kevin Costner, it equals the same as Yellow Smoke. Let me just type it out really quick. Kevin Costner equals 155 and 56. These are the only ciphers I knew at the time. And Yellow Smoke equals 155. So it was 155. Also with the S exception, it would equal 56. So 155, 56, Yellow Smoke. I also talked about the Oakland Athletics, who are important in the movie Field of Dreams. if you watch the movie, when Kevin Costner takes James Earl Jones's character to watch a baseball game, he takes him to the Red Sox versus the Oakland Athletics as well, and that's where it flashes Moonlight Graham and New York 1922, or 1922, I think it is. And what's funny about that is that in 1922, it was the same city World Series, New York versus New York. And the year that Field of Dreams came out, the Oakland Athletics, that was the earthquake year. The earthquake series, 1989. The Oakland Athletics ended up going on to win the World Series, and it was against the San Francisco Giants, a same city World Series. So they were foreshadowing that. And I don't want to get off topic. I'm going to come back to Field of Dreams in a second, but Field of Dreams, they've recently changed the date that Field of Dreams came out. Originally, forever, they've showed that the movie Field of Dreams came out on 4/21 of 1989, and now it shows 5/5 of 1989. I pointed this out earlier in the year, and it's funny because earthquake equals 55 in the reverse gematria, but to stay on the track of the Native American stuff, I just knew that Kevin Costner was important to a narrative, because later in 2016, at the end of July, we got the death of Chief David Bald Eagle, who was in the film Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner, right? And, you know, there was all kinds of interesting stuff with it, but I guess the point I'm making is that, you know, Yellow Smoke 155, Kevin Costner, I knew there was something important to how all of this synced up. And we recently got that story about Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner, and that's why I started thinking maybe James Earl Jones would possibly die and so on, because it was important to that. And there was all kinds of other Native American things going on in 2016, such as, like, the only movies that I went to the theater and watched that year was the movie called Allegiant, that was all about Chicago, the town Chicago. And the other movie was called The Darkness, with Kevin Bacon and the kid from the TV show called Touch. And the whole thing is about how the kid steals these rocks that belong to the Anasazi Indians or whatever, and basically it starts haunting their house and whatever. But it was about the Native Americans and about Chicago, and then Chicago and the Indians went on to play each other the World Series. And I think earlier I said Keystone Pipeline, but it was the Dakota Access Pipeline. But, you know, all kinds of stuff with Native Americans leading up to the Indians being in the World Series. And it was synced to the area that I live in, and the Omaha Indians and the Mormons and so on. And in regards to this, though, so with Field of Dreams, since they changed this date, right? They changed this date. There's a few other things they've changed I've noticed over the years, such as in 2015, they changed Corey Taylor's name, right? The lead singer of Slipknot. I changed it because he was on an interview saying that his name was different than what they had on Wikipedia. And I even cited the source, and they changed it back, like, at the same, you know, they changed it back at, like, 4:31 in the morning, I think, and 4:31 is the 83rd prime, and also the room that Paul Gray from Slipknot died in, and Paul Gray was the pig, and pig equals 38, just like the pig equals 38. He died age 38, and gematria equals 38, and he's all synced up to their song, Gematria, the Killing Name. But, which now is interesting, even more I'm thinking about this, because later on I'm going to talk about the number 128, and that's the beginning of the song Gematria by Slipknot. Corey Taylor says, 12/8/73, that was all I got, and now it got me, because that's his birthday, is 12/8. Huh, interesting. But when I was talking about him, it involved Kanye West, and Kanye West was also important around the same time he went to the White House around the same time that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced they were going to have a baby. But Corey Taylor was wearing a Star Wars shirt in an interview around that time too, talking crap on Kanye West. So Star Wars, Darth Vader, James Earl Jones. I just feel like there's something important to that. But in regards to them changing this, May 5th, the other day I was on Facebook, and I just went to Facebook. It was one of the, whatever, I just loaded up Facebook, and the first post that came up was a post about Kayla on here. I'll put a link to her video in the description, or her channel in the description, but the first thing that came up was her video about the Green Bay Packers coach Matt LaFleur, or however you say his name, and how they changed his birthday on Wikipedia. It used to say November 14th, and now they've changed it to November 3rd. And, you know, it just made me think about the Field of Dreams thing, right? How earlier this year I said, look at this, they changed Field of Dreams. It no longer came out on Queen Elizabeth's birthday. It came out on the date 5/5. And the year 1989 was also important to the Kanye and Taylor Swift stuff. I know it's getting deep, but, you know, Kanye sang the Queen song at Glastonbury just before Corey Taylor called him out. And, you know, Corey Taylor, Paul Gray, there was a Freddie Gray had died just before that, and then talked about how it synced up to Wes Craven, or Freddie Krueger, and then Wes Craven died the same day of the VMAs, that Taylor Swift, they announced her as the queen of the VMAs, and she had that album called 1989. Think about the year that Field of Dreams came out, and so on. There's a lot to this, but, no, I'm losing my train of thought here. I guess the point I'm trying to make with this is that they changed Field of Dreams, and when I saw this, it reminded me of Field of Dreams. So I was like, there's got to be something to do with the Native American theme again with this, right? And we had just had Darth Vader die, and the James Earl Jones guy, and I was going, you know, the Dances with Wolves story. There has to be something important to why this was the first post I saw and everything. So I went and looked it up, because you can look up when they do the edits and whatnot, and I noticed that originally his birthday was November 3rd, clear back in 2017, on March 6th. They had it, on March 6th, they put a birthday in for the first time, and they had November 3rd. And then on March 24th of 2017, they changed it to November 14th. And it was November 14th again until November 4th of 2020. So that's why everybody has his birthday as 11/14. Which is interesting, because in Jewish gematria, Native Americans, with an S, Native Americans equals 1,114. A lot like the date 1114. But I just decided to look it up. I was like, interesting, you know, and if you go from March 24th to November 3rd, what his actual birthday is, it's 224 days. And then if you go from November 14th to the date of Super Bowl 55, which is interesting in regards to Field of Dreams being changed to 5/5, now that I think about that too, but if you go from there, it's 2 months, 24 days. So there's 224. And I mean, I have countless videos recently where I talk about the number 224 being important. And even Bobby Brown Jr. equals 224. It's this humongous number that it's kind of guiding me to understand certain narratives, if that makes sense. But so I knew there was something important when I saw this. I was like, 224 days. I need to look into this. And, you know, there's other things too, such as it's 85 days from November 14th to the Super Bowl, and National Football League equals 85. And this was shared on the Gematria Mafia page, which equals 85. And I think just Kayla equals 85. Washington Redskins, I think, equal 85 at Gematria too. We'll type it out really quick. Just want to double check here. Washington Redskins equal 85. So, and I had just talked about too, Matt LaFleur, he was the Redskins coach when Kirk Cousins and Robert Griffin III were rookie quarterbacks. And I had just talked about in this Mike Tyson video how the South Park episode in 2014 called Go Fund Yourself was important. And in that episode, they have Kirk Cousins as the quarterback of the Washington Redskins because Robert Griffin III got injured against the Jaguars, and then he made his comeback against the Vikings, and now Kirk Cousins plays for the Vikings, and the coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was John Gruden's brother, or one of the coaches for the Buccaneers was John Gruden's brother, and he now coaches the Jacksonville Jaguars, the team that Robert Griffin III got hurt in. And on Thanksgiving, remember how Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens supposedly got coronavirus, so they delayed the game again against the Steelers. And, all of this is important because if you write out Native American equals 243. Pittsburgh Steelers also equal 243 in the frontwards way and the reverse way. And think about the date of March 24th. March 24th, in most parts of the world, is written as 24/3. And even more interesting is when I looked up Kayla's birthday, which is January 2nd on Facebook. Her birthday is 81 days before March 24th. And Pittsburgh Steelers also, it's so cold out here, but Pittsburgh Steelers also equal 81. So interesting, Kayla's birthday is 81 days before the date that can be written, 24/3, and Native American equals 243. Also, I've talked about these Francis Bacon ciphers, and, well, not all ciphers, but the Francis Bacon ciphers are just stupidly important. And maybe I'll make a video explaining that again, because with this drama, this division and whatever with Derek and Zach and so on, if you go back to 2019, I even predicted that something like that was going to happen, and then Derek went on Pat Leach's show, and that caused all this drama and so on, right? And it was all about Anarchadelphia, and, Anarchadelphia equals 201 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Big number that Zach's been talking about, the Jesuits. Philadelphia equals 201 with the Francis Bacon ciphers. Remember earlier in the year when Zach learned about the number 201 and event 201, he was on like a trip in Louisiana, right, trying to expose the knowledge and so on. And look what Louisiana equals, 201. So perfect that he was staying in room 201, and this guy reaches out to him about, what was his name? Dr. David Cottrell, that equals 201. He reaches out to him about event 201 while he's in Louisiana. That equals 201. And that all involved Andrew Luck of the Colts, because Derek made that video the same day Andrew Luck announced his retirement, right? And remember in 2016, I was following the Native American theme that was synced up to the Indianapolis Colts, and we thought the Indianapolis Colts were going to go on and win the Super Bowl. But instead, we learned reverse gematria and the importance of it right after that, right? There was this big drama, and you could feel it. They were trying to divide the gematria community, right? They had Zach's car crash, and they had all these people saying that it was fake, and this or that. They were really trying to do a divide. And in 2018 and 19, I was talking about how they were doing this again, and it was all seemingly leading up to that big date 8/11 we were following. And of course, then just after that, on the Julian 8/11, Andrew Luck retires, and then Derek makes this video, and it causes this rift, and so on. And I also mentioned how Jeopardy was in the news around that same time, and it was showing me that same narrative, and I thought there was going to be something important that we would learn. And of course, I learned about the Francis Bacon ciphers around that same time, and I've never stopped using them because they have shown me how important they really are to this narrative. So 2016, we learned, all that drama. It was important to showing us the reverse methods were important. And now I'm telling you, all of this new stuff, it's important because we were supposed to learn the Francis Bacon ciphers importance. And maybe not everybody, maybe that's just all set up for me to learn. I don't know. My path, I guess, but I know that it's important. But I guess I'm bringing all this up because look at what Society of Jesus equals in the Francis Bacon ciphers. It equals 243, like Pittsburgh Steelers, like the date 24/3. Even Matt LaFleur, if you look up his real first name, it's supposedly Matthew Patrick LaFleur. That equals 243, also 324, just like that date, March 24th. Also remember Kobe Bean Bryant equals 243. He went to Catholic Church before he died. Think about Kobe Bryant in regards to the Portland Trail Blazers, right? Portland Trail Blazers. Just so happened to equal 243. They were the first team that the Lakers played after Kobe died, and then when they were playing in the playoffs, you had the death of Cliff Robinson and so on, right? The Portland Trail Blazers, super important. I know even further that this was important because when that hockey player for the Chicago Blackhawks, the indigenous guy, Fred Sasakamoose, I think is his name, when he died, they called him a trailblazer. And then we recently had another death of the Pat Patterson, the the wrestling guy, WWE, WWF, or whatever it is. He died, and they also called him a trailblazer. So I was like, I wonder. And I looked up trailblazer. Of course, Portland Trailblazers equal 243, just like Kobe Bean Bryant. Another interesting 243 is Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., just so happens to equal 243. Also, in regards to there's an eclipse that's coming up on December 14th that's going to be over South America, right? That's where Pope Francis is originally from. He's from Buenos Aires, Argentina. And think about this thing with Derek and Zach and whatever. Derek always talks about the eclipses and the moon and everything else, right? But notice South America also equals 243. And, you know, there's something important to how this syncs up to the year 2016, because at the end of that year, after the major Native American thing that was going on, remember how that was important to Prince Charles. Prince Charles's birthday is 11/14, right? Remember how Native Americans equal 11/14, and that was the day that they changed the Matt LaFleur's birthday, right? 11/14. And after the Indians lost in the World Series, then Trump won this rigged selection. Then we had the closest supermoon on Prince Charles's birthday, and there was also a major earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand. And, you know, I'm pointing this out for a couple of reasons, because in regards to the Meghan Markle video that I previously made, I talked about how, she announced her miscarriage exactly 36 weeks before her birthday, and it was on the day leaving 36 days in the year, and Prince Harry is 36 years old, and it reminds me that his mother, Princess Diana, died at the age of 36, and she died in Paris. That equals 36 and 63. And just thinking about this, Princess Diana also died on the 243rd day of the year. But also in regards to all that, remember at the end of 2016, so Zach started All for Truth, the website for truth seekers, and he used the umbrella logo, or the website used an umbrella logo. And then just 10 days after that, a guy named the Umbrella Man threatened Zach, and then a car crashed into his house the very next day, the same day that the Colts got eliminated from the playoffs on Christmas Eve, and so on. And then, 186 days later, they deleted Zach's first channel. 186 days later, on the date of 6/28, which is the day that leaves 186 days in the year. Then Zach, he did the gematria effect again on the 186th day of the year, and then he took a 2-week break. And what else is interesting is, 6/28 just so happens to be Elon Musk's birthday. And think about this in regards to space, eclipses. Think about umbrellas and how umbrellas also block the sun, right? And Elon Reeve Musk just so happens to equal 186. And SpaceX also just so happens to equal 186. And the original Umbrella Man was from the JFK assassination, and his name was Louis Witt. Louis Witt equals 186. His middle name was Stephen. Louis Stephen Witt, 186. And in regards to the Jesuits, Donald Trump and Pope Francis's birthdays are 186 days apart, and the word umbrella equals 132, like Catholic Church, also equals 110, like the word Jesuit equals 110, the word president equals 110. Think about 9/11 and the 110 story World Trade Centers, and a whole lot more. But, you know, Umbrella Man even equals 145. Or the Umbrella Man is what it is, actually. Is 145, just like the word Catholic equals 145, just like Jorge Bergoglio, the current Pope's name, equals 145. And what else is interesting in regards to all of that was Zach also, in 2017, after his car got crashed into whatever, he made a random blog post because somebody gave him the book called If They Only, God, my computer is crazy, Knew, by Darren Dalton, the baseball player. And then Darren Dalton died 192 days before the World Series that year. And he died 113 days after Zach made that blog post, and it was the 113th World Series. But notice that book also equals 186. And he just happened to die on the date of 8/6, which is the 218th day of the year, leaving 147 days. And this sticks out because All for Truth, that launched with the Umbrella logo, it just so happened to launch 218 days before Zach's birthday. And, you know, this is a number that's important to conspiracy theory. That's why Alex Jones got kicked off of Twitter on the date of 8/6, right? And conspiracy theory equals 218, right? And the word conspiracy equals 147 in the reverse method. And think about how that's the day leaving 147 days of the year. And, you know, these are just the type of things that Zach doesn't talk about. And I get it, because it takes away from his message that everything is the Freemasons and the Jesuits and the Cabal and so on. But, and I'm not trying to cause a rift by saying that, because I enjoy what he does, I agree with what he does, but there's more to this puzzle that is going on. And I'm bringing all this up because recently YouTube suspended Zach's video about Elon Musk, right? And let me just find it here. They suspended his video that was about Elon Musk. And, you know, it was 218 days before Elon Musk's birthday even. 218. Think about Darren Dalton, the 218th day. Neil Armstrong also equals 186. And Zach was born on the same day that Neil Armstrong stepped foot on the moon. And he stepped foot on the moon after launching from Apollo 11. Apollo 11 also equals 186. Of course, NASA equals 132, like Catholic Church, and so on. Umbrella. So, I mean, there's something very important to this. And in regards to my experience in 2017, I was talking all about the Jesuits that year. My uncle died in a weird car crash, and he was a Knight of Columbus, and I started noticing all these patterns with the Jesuits and the number 63. Like, my uncle died at the age of 63, and all the priests in my town that I remember, they all had a connection to 63, such as Father Paul, who died in 2010. He was a Jesuit, and he died in a bathtub 6 months and 3 days after the Jesuit anniversary at the age of 63, and his name equaled 63. Another priest died on the 63rd day of the year, Friendly Father Fred. And then a priest who supposedly molested me, or we joked about it, he got kicked out of the church after 35 years, Catholic equals 35, when he was age 63. And the story of him came out on June 30th, a lot like 63. And I was just following this major Jesuit narrative, and after all of that happened, right? And I talked about how Father Paul spent most of his time on the reservation, right? Think about the Native Americans, the reservation in Rosebud, South Dakota. And I later had this weird synchronicity with Happy Gilmore, and there's a part in Happy Gilmore where he golfs with Bob Barker, the host of The Price is Right, and then they get in a fight and so on. And I talked about how Bob Barker actually was born and raised in Rosebud Indian Reservation, right? So I was like, there's this interesting, weird connection. And I also then just randomly stumbled upon this other thing about The Price is Right and the guy who got the perfect showcase named Terry Neese. And I was following this big pattern with the Jesuits all year of 2017. And then on the Jesuit anniversary, a phone number from Las Vegas called me and nobody was on there. And then 3 days later, the day before the Las Vegas attack, The guy who got the perfect showcase on The Price is Right, named Terry Neese, reached out to me. And he's from Las Vegas, and even when he was on the show, he was wearing a shirt that said Las Vegas on it. And, notice his name equals 186. And my Uncle Barney was also important to the Flintstones. His wife was Betty, and so on. The Flintstones equal 186. So, I'm not calling people out. I'm saying that this system it's greater. Yes, I agree that the Jesuits and the Freemasons and so on have something to do with understanding this knowledge, and, it's obvious every day in the media, they're purposely doing things, but it's bigger than this, But moral of the story is that I'm bringing this up, the umbrella stuff up, because the umbrella blocks the sun. Think about an eclipse. The umbrella is important to this same narrative that was kind of right after the Native American theme and so on. And remember earlier in the year, the umbrella theme was important to the George Floyd stuff and the Minneapolis riots, right? And then they started the autonomous zone that the umbrella was important to, and Hong Kong had the umbrella riots as well, and Hong Kong's an autonomous zone. But Buenos Aires, Argentina is also an autonomous city. So I just have a feeling that there's something very important to it, and how it syncs up. Another reason I think it's important is because Kayla, so I know this video is really hard to organize, and I'm sorry if it doesn't make that much sense, but Kayla is also Navajo, right? And if you go back and look at my Meghan Markle video, I talked about how Donald Trump originally called Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas to the Navajo code talkers, right? Just think about that, Navajo code talkers and so on. And the Navajo Nation is also a partial autonomous zone, right? So I know that there's some relation to these autonomous zones and how it syncs up to the umbrella symbolism. And Zach's always talking about how Derek does everything to the eclipse. Now we got this eclipse coming up in South America that's synced up to the Jesuits for one. It's synced up to Pope Francis and the Jesuits' sun logo and much, much more, but South America equals 243. I'll talk more about this 264 number in a minute, but I wanted to point all that out because of all the Jesuit priest stuff that I was talking about in my own life, like all the 63 stuff. It's relevant to what is going on with this Matt LaFleur blog post. If I can find it again. Because the reason why is because if you write out Kayla's, the name of her channel, it equals 63 and 153. And the word Native American equals 63 and 243, right? Indigenous equals 63 and 153, just like Kayla's channel. Prince Harry equals 63. Meghan Markle equals 63. And I even commented on Zach's video about Meghan Markle and the number 36 and so on. And Kayla even added to it that the story was 36 weeks before Meghan Markle's birthday. So I was like, how interesting, I really don't ever talk to her. And she just added this piece, and she just so happens to be Navajo. And then I go to Facebook, and this literally is the first post that comes up, and it's connected to, the number 243, like Native American. Navajo equals 36 and 63. Her birthday is also 36 days before Super Bowl 55. And remember, the original date that Wikipedia put a birthday for Matt LaFleur on there was on the date of 3/6. And then they changed it to November 14th on the day 3/24, right? Or 2/4/3. So 36, 243. Both these numbers important to Native Americans. Kayla's birthday is even 63 days before 3/6, right? So there's just something really important to it. If you go from 3/6 to the day they changed his birthday to again, or his original birthday, it's 243 days. Also in Gematria, Redskins just so happens to equal 36. Redskins equal 36. And earlier this year, they're not called the Redskins anymore. They're called the Washington football team. But earlier this year, I documented about the South Park episode Go Find Yourself that I talked about earlier. Now it was synced up to Robert Griffin III. I think about Robert Griffin III, who was the backup for Lamar Jackson on Thanksgiving, or, he's the backup after Lamar Jackson announced that he had coronavirus on Thanksgiving, the day the Redskins were playing the Cowboys, or the football team was playing the Cowboys. And I went back and looked at some of the stuff that I wrote about. In 2014, I had a video where I talked about this episode, and a major thing in this episode was actually the Buffalo Bills, because the Buffalo Bills owner, Ralph Wilson, had died in March that year, and he died, before this episode came out. But there's a part in this episode where they do almost like a Zoom call, and they have all of the NFL owners, and the only one they don't have is the Buffalo Bills, and it's because Ralph Wilson had died. And in gematria, look at Buffalo. Buffalo equals 63 and 36, and Buffalo Bills, or Bills, equal 36. What does Buffalo Bills equal? They equal 169, which is pretty important, because pretty sure Kevin Costner equals 169. I wrote that in my blog somewhere, but, they have this connection of 36, 63. They're doing pretty good right now, winning their division. In 2016, another piece of that Native American stuff was when Alton Sterling died. And I'm trying to think now. What did he die? He died on the Did he die on the 186th day of the year, even? Let me see here. It was July 6th. Or it was July 5th, wasn't it? We'll look it up really quick. Alton Sterling. Can't remember what day he died. 2016 on July 5th, which is also the same day that they reported Kyle Calloway dead, right? Which is normally the 186th day of the year. Interesting. I didn't even put that together. But Alton Sterling, he died in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And, of course it was a huge hoax. It didn't even make any sense, the camera angles and everything else. But he died in Baton Rouge, and then the very next day we had the death of Philando Castile, and he died in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. And, of course, too, the cop was named Geronimo, which I'll talk about in a second, but think about it. Native Americans, Geronimo. But Philando Castile died in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. And Falcon Heights, Minnesota is where Teddy Roosevelt gave a famous speech about carrying a big stick. And Baton Rouge is named after the red stick of the Homa people, marking the hunting boundaries. And earlier in the year, we talked about how Barack Obama, he went to Omaha, Nebraska right after his State of the Union address. Think about the Omaha people, Omaha tribe and so on, right? Omaha, Nebraska. Then Lawrence Phillips, the Nebraska Cornhusker player, died and a bunch of stuff. But the next day he went to Baton Rouge and he gave a speech at McKinley High School. And the reason that stuck out was because William McKinley was the president who got assassinated at the World's Fair in Buffalo, New York. And after he got assassinated, or during the time that he got assassinated, just before that, Teddy Roosevelt, his vice president, gave a speech in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, about carrying the big stick. And then when he died, Teddy Roosevelt became, the new president and so on. And I just have a feeling that it's important, because McKinley got shot in Buffalo. Think about the Buffalo Bills are synced up to this 36 and 63. There's also there's so much stuff going on here. But remember Donald Trump, too? After Ralph Wilson died, Donald Trump was one of the front runners that wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills, and then he didn't win, and so on. He didn't win to become the owner of the Buffalo Bills, and that was also the same year that this episode came out. So, wouldn't it be kind of interesting that, if the Buffalo Bills would go on to the Super Bowl after Donald Trump doesn't become the new president and so on, kind of like a big fuck you to Donald Trump or something. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but I mean, I could care less, but I like following these narratives to try to figure it out, but it's interesting, And another big thing in 2016, it was all about the Cleveland Indians who were cursed by Rocky Colavito. Remember, Buffalo Bills equal 169, like Rocky Colavito 169. He was cursed by the trade to the Detroit Tigers. Detroit Tigers equals 169. Field of Dreams equals 169. Field of Dreams also equals 63. Field of Dreams equals 63. And the movie is about the 36-year-old character that Kevin Costner plays. Also, Denison, Iowa equals 169. Remember how Denison, Iowa is important to this narrative with the death of Kyle Calloway in 2016? And, he died in Vail, Arizona, but Kyle Calloway was also a player for the Buffalo Bills, right? He died the same day or the story with him was in the news the same day that the story of Alton Sterling was in the news. Look at the coach of the Buffalo Bills right now, too. Current coach, the guy was born in Omaha, Sean McDermott. He's 46 years old right now. Omaha, Nebraska equals 46. Omaha and Satanic equals 213, which is interesting, too. His birthday, 21/3. He also went to a Catholic high school. But notice his name, Sean McDermott, 201. Sean Michael McDermott, 201. Right? This big number with the Jesuits. The guy who actually owns the Buffalo Bills right now is Terry Pegula. His name equals 201. His full name, Terrence Michael Pegula, it equals 201. So, I mean, interesting how it connects, and sometimes I wonder, I'm still watching the Baltimore Ravens because over the years I've just noticed a lot of times I'll be following a certain team and for a long time, and then all of a sudden there's all these connections to a different team, and then the team that I was actually following is actually more important, and they're still related to these other things. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't want to make predictions really, but the things that I'm talking about, it's obvious that they show up. So it doesn't even matter to me if you fully predict it, which would be cool. But it's easy to make assumptions by this knowledge and so on, but nobody has it 100% proofed. You know what I'm saying? To predict every sports team, because if it was 100%, I would be a millionaire right now. You know what I mean? If it was 100% flawless, I would be betting on every game and, never working and just doing this knowledge and so on, And it's not 100%, but you can, get great ideas, such as, what was it, the Steelers versus Ravens game that they pushed back 31 days after the last time they played, and Steelers equal 31, and the Steelers got their 11th win, and the 11th prime number is 31. If you watch that game in the fourth quarter, the very final drive that the Steelers had, the announcer even said it was going to start at the 11-yard line, even though it started at the 13-yard line. They even stopped the clock on a special part where there was 2 minutes 43 seconds left. And at the very end of the game, I swear to God, the announcer said something about how all these people were out from COVID and so on, and how they were a bunch of actors. And I didn't record it because it was on my phone and I was at work, but I know for a fact he said something about everyone was a bunch of actors. And I wish I could record it, but I don't have it, so. But, I mean, you can make good assumptions, but sometimes when that happens, it's synced up to the other team for some reason. And, they'll win by 11 points or 31 points or, be exactly what you're following, but the team doesn't always win. So, just, if it was 100% proof, everyone in this community would be millionaires. We'd all be making a ton of money off this, and we wouldn't even have to worry about money. But It's obviously not 100% foolproof, but the bigger picture is to show that there are these narratives going on, and there is a code that is behind everything. That is the point that I'm trying to show. So it's not about who wins or who loses, but there are multiple narratives, and they all come together at some point if you pay enough attention. And, it's not necessarily about who wins all the time, but that's why I enjoy following these narratives. So I know I'm rambling, but I got to make these points. Another interesting thing in regards to the Buffalo Bills is the connection to the movie The Bodyguard with Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner. And if you go back to the video I talked about the death of Bobby Brown Jr., I talked about the film The Bodyguard, right? And how Whitney Houston died in a bathtub and Bobby Christina died in a bathtub, and both of them were synced up to the Super Bowls at the time they died, and so on. And the Jesuit priest that was from my town, he also died in a bathtub at the age of 63, synced up, and so on. And I mentioned how Christina Aguilera did a tribute to her. Well, I think it was on the same day that Charles Manson died, that Christina Aguilera did a tribute to Whitney Houston, and she sang "I Will Always Love You" from The Bodyguard. And she's also known for singing the worst ever national anthem, which is important to the Charles Manson narrative about kneeling. It's synced up to the kneeling during the national anthem and black people rising up, and so on. It's synced up to Baltimore, who's the Blackbird. But Whitney Houston is known for singing the greatest ever national anthem, and she did so at the 1991, I'll find it really quick, I can't remember, Super Bowl 1991. It was the Buffalo Bills versus the New York Giants. Whitney Houston was the singer of the national anthem, and it's supposedly the greatest ever national anthem sang at a Super Bowl, right? And Christina Aguilera is known for messing up the words to the Super Bowl, or to the Star Spangled Banner and so on, but, it's interesting. This was the beginning of the Buffalo Bills' 4 Super Bowls in a row, and it was also in Tampa, where the Super Bowl's held this year, and they lost all of these. The next one, they lost to the Redskins, then they lost to the Dallas Cowboys 2 times. Just want to point it out here. Native American stuff. Redskins, the Cowboys. Lost to the Cowboys 30-13. And honestly, the only one I really remember, I remember the Buffalo Bills sucking or whatever and losing in the Super Bowls as a kid. But the one I remember the most is when Scott Norwood, Lisa the Greek, I'll have to look at some of them Simpsons episodes, but was it the first one against the Giants when Scott Norwood missed the... It is. Scott Norwood missed the field goal. And I don't know, I'm just wondering. Kevin Bacon is also in that movie JFK. So we got Kevin Costner, and you also have Kevin Bacon. And remember, in 2016, I watched that movie called The Darkness about the Anasazi Indians, right? Anasazi. Kevin Bacon's the star of that movie as well. And look at Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon has the middle name Norwood. So I don't know. Maybe that's nothing. It's just something that kind of stuck out to me and interested me. He's also in Apollo 13. It's important to the moon. So I don't know. Just makes me wonder. Norwood. Another thing that sticks out to me is that recently, let me find it here. I don't know if it's in here, but... So, the other night was, Derek went on this Jason Goodman's blog or whatever, or on his YouTube channel, and then Zach came on there in the chat or whatever. This guy called Zach when he was in his live stream and so on, right? But his name's Jason Goodman, and Think about Ralph Wilson, who was the owner of the Buffalo Bills, who died before that Go Fund Yourself episode and so on, right? Ralph. And in 2016, I also mentioned a Ralph theme that was important in that summer. There was the Native American theme, and then we had the death of David Huddleston, who was in The Big Lebowski, that also stars John Goodman, right? And John Goodman is King Ralph. And there's also the store in the movie The Big Lebowski called Ralph's. And it was all leading up to Ralphie May dying. And Ralphie May died just after the Vegas attack that I talked about was synced up to the Jesuits, right? So King Ralph, and then John Goodman. I even recently watched The Connors for no reason whatsoever. I haven't kept up on it, so I randomly went to Hulu, and I watched like the 5 episodes or something that have been out in this new season, right? The Connors, John Goodman, and so on. It's really not that good, but, you know, it's just interesting that there's this drama, and his name equals 128, and the same night that this happened, like, every story that I clicked on was synced up to 128, such as this Instagram follower, Alexis Sharkey. She died 77 days after the Rockets were eliminated from the playoffs. She died near Houston. Of course, Houston equals 77. Alexis Sharkey equals 77. The Bushes are absolutely important to the number 77, and they're also from Houston, or they have that connection to Houston and so on, right? Like, George Bush got married in the year 77, and his father was the leader of the CIA until the year 77, and September 11th equals 77, and Flight 77 at the 77-foot-tall Pentagon exactly 77 minutes after taking off on the 77th meridian, and a whole lot more. Prescott Bush, the grandpa and the father, he died age 77, 7 months and 7 days before his birthday. And whatever. The Bushes are super synced up to 77 in Houston. And Houston equals 77. But the story was about Instagram, you know. And once again, these Francis Bacon ciphers, absolutely important to what's going on, but it was about Instagram, and Instagram just so happens to equal 128 in gematria. Instagram. My T's not working for some reason. But Instagram equals 128. And then we had the story of, let me find it here. Was it this Elliot Page person? Elliot Page, once again, too. Synced up to Francis Bacon gematria. This person, they changed their name 2 months and 20 days before their birthday, and they changed their name to Elliot Page. Elliot Page equals 220 of the Francis Bacon ciphers. Also, the word Elliot equals 73, like transgendered, but maybe it wasn't this one. All I know is there's a bunch of 128s the other night. There's an Instagram follower. Of course, Jeopardy equals 243. Buster Douglas, he wants to rematch Mike Tyson. Of course, the story came 239 days after his birthday. And Buster Douglas equals 239, and Francis Bacon, he also equals 47. His birthday's 4/7. Roy Jones Jr., who Mike Tyson just drawed or whatever with, his name equals 239. A lot more to that. But, I pointed out that when Buster Douglas beat Mike Tyson, it was in Tokyo, Japan, that equals 128. And he beat Mike Tyson a span of 1 month and 28 days before his birthday. And the story that came out about him wanting to rematch Mike Tyson was a span of 128 days before his birthday. So I was like 128. And then Instagram equals 128. I also talked about this She's All That thing and how it was synced up to the song Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer. And I wrote it's 1 month and 28 days before the anniversary of She's All That coming out. It's also a span of 1 month, 28 days after the main character's birthday. The song Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer, that's famous from this movie, equals 128. And the single for the song Kiss Me came out on the date 12/8. 128. And, you know, I want to point out this date is also the 224th day of the year. Remember at the beginning of the video I was talking about how 224 is this number important, but, you know. And once again, they were filming this remake called He's All That equals 56, and it supposedly blocked people from being able to get tested for coronavirus, and coronavirus equals 56, and toilet paper equals 56, and they had the Fauci 56, and so on. Then this thing with Zach happened, or I watched it later that night, and I noticed Jason Goodman equaled 128. And what's even funnier is then the next day, when I found out about this Pocahontas actress, it popped up on my phone that the Pocahontas actress got arrested, and she just so happened to get arrested 128 days after her birthday. And if you write out 128, it equals 264, which is another big number I've been talking about. And her name just so happens to equal 264. And I started just thinking about it, and I went back and, I was like, there's got to be something connected to my old Native American stuff. And remember when Kyle Calloway died, he died in Vail, Arizona. That equals 128. And Denison, Iowa also equals 128. And let me just show you. 128 equals 264. And this is a big number I've been talking about since the death of Sean Connery, right? And Sean Connery, his name equals 1,114 in the English extended cipher, reminding us of Native Americans yet again. And Jeopardy equals 243 like Native American, right? But 264, Sean Connery's name equaled 264. I pointed out that like Kamala Harris equals 264 and White House equals 264. Also talked about Queen Elizabeth II equaling 264, and if Prince Charles becomes the king, he'll be King Charles III. That equals 264. And remember, his birthday is 11/14, right? 11/14. Also mentioned how COVID-19 equals 264. But in relation to what I was talking about with Denison, Iowa, 128 equals 264. Look at Brandon Scherf's name. Brandon Scherf, the Washington Redskins player. 264. Also, Chief Yellow Smoke, I think it is. Chief Yellow Smoke, 264. Also 186. Also Jim Garrison, the guy who Kevin Costner played in the movie JFK, who's from Denison, Iowa. His name equals 264. And look, Jason Goodman, I just want to point it out. Jason Goodman, 128. And his channel is actually called Crowdsource the Truth. And look what happens when you write out Crowdsource the Truth. Crowdsource the Truth. My T is just not working right. Equals 264. So what are the odds that dude's channel name equals 264, and then his actual name equals 128, and if you're at 128, that equals 264, It's craziness. The lady who plays Pocahontas equals 264. It's the number synced up to Kevin Costner and the Indian theme, and it's mind-blowing, Seattle, Washington also equals 264. Think about COVID-19. Oh, man, it's driving me crazy. Seattle, Washington, 264. Think about COVID-19 and the first cases being in Seattle and so on. It's probably why the Oklahoma City Thunder became the Oklahoma City Thunder after they left Seattle, right? Oklahoma City, 264 or 243. Elon Musk, look at Elon Reeve Musk. 264, 243, 186. This is how I know that it's important somehow. All of this, I know it's crazy and long and whatever, and it's hard to understand and follow, but like, I know that it is somehow important to this space moon type theme that is going on. And it also syncs up to China. We just had John Wall get traded to the Houston Rockets for Russell Westbrook. And remember, in 2019, after the South Park episode that was synced up to the Houston Rockets and China, right? And then Daryl Morey, the Houston Rockets general manager, tweeted about China and a whole lot more. But remember that World Series, like when the World Series was going on, you had the Houston Rockets and the Washington Wizards, and they had that epic 317-point game that was all synced up to like Mike D'Antoni's birthday and James Harden and whatever else, right? So there's an important reason why they got John Wall now at the Houston Rockets. And DeMarcus Cousins, too, the guy that I talked about, important to all this narrative with Kobe, he now plays for the Houston Rockets. And he got traded to the Houston Rockets 264 days after his birthday. Or one or the other, after or before his birthday, right? So 264. South America also equals 264. South America and Buenos Aires equals 128. That's where Pope Francis is from. Can't remember. I know I commented in a Zenith something the other day too about Rocky and Apollo Creed. Can't remember. His name's Carl Weathers. Carl Weathers, I think, equals 264. Carl Weathers, 243 and 264. Also 191, like Society of Jesus. And remember, in the Rocky films, Apollo Creed, he dies on 8/31, the 243rd day of the year. And Apollo Creed is also Chubbs, or Carl Weathers is Chubbs, in the Happy Gilmore film. Think about Happy Gilmore and Bob Barker and so on. Robert Barker equals 264 or 243. You know, Happy Gilmore also has the building that he learns how to putt. When he learns how to putt, there's a building that falls over on the Earthquake Golf Course, and it has the black cube on top of it that looks like the Comcast Center in Philadelphia, which is important to the Tisha B'Av stuff from 2019. So, you know, the black cube that represents the New Jerusalem. So there's something. What's Happy Gilmore? Let's look it up really quick. Happy Gilmore. 145, like Catholic Church, and also 231, like Baltimore Ravens and National Anthem. And I don't know. I know Adam Sandler's born on 9/9, which is important to Queen Elizabeth, too. That's why in the film, they say, meet me at the 9th green at 9, and a bunch of other stuff. But I don't know. Just makes me wonder. Carl Weathers. Carl Weathers is important to Prince, because he's in a movie called Action Jackson with Vanity, who was Prince's old girlfriend, who died just before Prince. Carl Weathers also played for the Raiders, I believe. Let me look it up really quick. Carl Weathers. And he played for the Oakland Raiders, who are important to the narrative I've talked about with the pirate theme. And what's interesting about all that is that the Pittsburgh Steelers used to be called the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll just show you really quick. I was thinking, he's in The Mandalorian too. I've never watched that show. I have a Mandalorian t-shirt that my kids give me, but I've never watched it. But just think about the Star Wars narrative and so on. But the Pittsburgh Steelers were originally called the Pittsburgh Pirates. And remember earlier in the year when the Toronto Blue Jays were supposed to, they originally said they were going to play all their games in Pittsburgh, and then they ended up playing their games in Buffalo. Right? So there's something interesting to that. They were going to play their games in Pittsburgh, They ended up playing their games in Buffalo, and their first game was against Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay is where the Super Bowl's being held. The Tampa Bay went on to the World Series. There's also something important to Dan Marino, with my uncle and so on, and Dan Marino's birthday is September 15th, and Dan Marino, he played college at Pittsburgh, and this is important to Ben Roethlisberger as well. Ben Roethlisberger, who plays for Pittsburgh, he played college at Miami, Ohio, right? Think about Dan Marino, Miami, and so on. But Dan Marino sticks out because his birthday is 9/15, which is the same as Prince Harry's birthday. Prince Harry's birthday is 9/15. And if you go to Zach's blog, remember how Amazon... Let me see if I could find it here. All right, Pittsburgh. Remember how Amazon sent him a thing about his book and whatever? He was in the top 56 or something like that. Here we go. Today I got a call from a company that works with Amazon out of Pittsburgh, California. Even it's spelled different than that, but it was out of Pittsburgh, California. And he talked about all this stuff synced up to his book and whatever. You know what else is interesting about his book is that he released it, or Amazon released it on the date of 10/13, and it's all about the Jesuits and so on. And was it Pope Paul III, I think, the guy who approved the Jesuits? Look when he became the Pope, October 13th. Right, he became the Pope October 13th, the same day that Zach's book came out. He's the guy who approved the Jesuits and so on, and there's a whole lot more. I even left a comment in here. October 13th is 84 days, or 2 months and 22 days after his birthday. It also leaves 79 days in the year. The word Jesuit equals 84. Society of Jesus equals 79, so on, right? Letters and numbers equals 56, 187, 191. That's his first book, right? So it's all synced up. And once again, I'm not calling him out. I'm not saying that he's a bad person or this or that. I'm just saying that these things happen, right? This is how the world works. But, it's interesting. Pittsburgh, so the Native American stuff is synced up to Pittsburgh. Even if you go to the Buffalo Super Bowls, what was it? Super Bowl LV, right? Not LV. 25. Super Bowl. Just go and look. It talks about the Pittsburgh Steelers in every one of them, I thought. Maybe not this one, but all the other ones, it talks about the Pittsburgh Steelers in the thing. Pittsburgh Steelers, and you go to the next one, it talks about the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, it quite possibly is for the Steelers, I don't know. But I got a feeling there's something... Maybe the Buffalo Bills are just going to be the next team to get all coronavirus up, right? Maybe that's what it's all about. Maybe it's nothing to do with the Super Bowl. Maybe it's the Buffalo Bills are going to get the coronavirus and be the next team like the Baltimore Ravens here that can't play, or, I don't know. But regardless, there's something important to how Pittsburgh syncs up to the Native American theme, so I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out this life. Another 128, we got the story about this Candy Cowser lady who got bit by a tiger at Carol Baskin's Big Cat Rescue, right? And of course, this lady equals 128. But also 47, just like Carol Baskin, just like Joe Exotic, and it happened 180 days before Carol Baskin's birthday, and this lady's name in Francis Bacon equals 180. So I'll tell you, I can simplify every video if I really wanted to, and just literally go, look, syncs up to Francis Bacon, syncs up to Francis Bacon, syncs up to Francis Bacon, syncs up to Francis Bacon. It really makes the most sense to me, too. When you really think about the Francis Bacon and Frank Baconist ciphers, don't they really make a lot more sense? When you're in school, they teach you A, B, B, C, C, and so on, right? They teach you that. They teach you that capital letters are important. So why wouldn't it be important? And think about how there's 52 letters that way, and how Kabbalah equals 52, and Gematria equals 52, and would you believe that God equals 52 in these ciphers? God equals 52. Think about playing cards and how there's 52 cards and how it's connected to the royal family. Think about how the word Pope equals 52 and how the word President equals 52, right? Think about how the Illuminati equals 239, which is the 52nd prime number, and Society of Jesus equals 239, which is the 52nd prime number. You know, so it's important. These ciphers just seem so much more important to me, right? And they're just super relevant to these other ones, but as far as, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like this is the time we're supposed to really understand these ciphers, and I get it that there's 8 of them and it's confusing to people, but they're so relevant right now. It's just, I mean, every story that I decode, it is connected, and with Francis Bacon or Frank Baconus gematria, so I don't know. Well, we got this story. Queen Elizabeth dog. Her Dorgy Vulcan. We'll just look at it. I don't know. Let's just look at it. Vulcan. Well, interesting. Vulcan equals 145, like Catholic Church. Or like the word Catholic, and, you know, the word Catholic also equals 35. It's Dorgy. Dorgy equals 35 as well. So Dorgy equals 35. Vulcan equals 35. Vulcan makes me think of, what's his name? Star Trek, the greetings guy. What the heck is that guy's name? Spock, right? When did Spock die? Spock. I mean, this is how I decode. If you want to know, this is what I do. When it just makes me think of something. Leonard Nimoy. 227. Leonard Nimoy. So 2015. Plug him in here. 145, huh? Leonard Nimoy, who was Spock the Vulcan, who equals 145 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Huh. Spock. Spock equals 64. Didn't Leonard Nimoy equal that? Leonard Nimoy equals 64. Oh, what a joke. I mean, this is just how coded the world is, you know? Star Trek. This 164 number has been really important, too, in regards to 264. You know, like, for example, James Bond, right? James Bond's 164. Sean Connery is also a 164 and 264. Kamala Harris, 164, 264. So, let's see. Well, what is today? 12/4. We'll go to Queen Elizabeth's birthday. 227 days. What day, literally, what day did Leonard Nimoy die on? 227? That's why this dog named Vulcan dies 227 days after her birthday. The Vulcan, oh man, it's just so ridiculous. I'll have to look more into that. How it's connected to Star Trek. I don't know anything about Star Trek, though. 138 days before her next birthday. Just makes me think of Donald Trump, 138. We'll go to the day she became the queen. How about that? 64 days. Leonard Nimoy, Spock. Perfect. Let me double check. Maybe her dog died a different day, though. The story's on December 4th. That's crazy. Definitely synced up to Leonard Nimoy. 227. The number important to pi. Doesn't really say as far as I can see. I don't know. I'll have to look more into that, but it's definitely connected to Leonard Nimoy and Star Trek there. I'm trying to think why else 64 was important. I know there was a reason that 64 was important to her from a long time ago, and I can't think of what it is. What's her name? I'm just rambling now. I'm sorry, guys. Queen Elizabeth. Well, my T is not working right. It's just Elizabeth. I can't remember. I know there's something important. I feel like there's something important to 64 with her. Was it? Let's see. 32 days. I don't know. Well, I'm just going to end the video there. But it's way longer. I know it's confusing. Lots going on, but... I mean, Native Americans equals 64. But maybe that's what I'm thinking of. With an S on it. Native Americans equals 64. Could be something like that. I can't remember. But whatever. I'll leave some little notes of whatever. But have a good one. Peace.